Of all the things that we've learned since 1993, when they got this idea to put these different martial arts against each other, I can tell you as a wrestler, we were very surprised. I did not know that wrestling was effective. Like, we really did learn a lot. But one of the bigger surprises is how bad Japan sucks at fighting. I mean, we had always been told, right? Even if it was Hollywood and it was in the form of movies, we were still led to believe that the secrets of the martial arts all come from Japan. Those guys are terrible. They have all been terrible. And as I get to thinking about it, I don't remember a boxing medal that they've ever won in the Olympics. I'm told they do well in judo. I don't follow it. I couldn't contest it. I went and looked up their taekwondo, which I've always been told does great. They don't have any medals in that either. Like, Japan and martial arts do not go hand in hand. I don't know why those guys are terrible. I have my own theories. I think it has to do with diet. I think that the eating of rice as opposed to eating of protein, it will take you 100 years to birth that physiology back in, but I can't prove that. That's just like some very loose theory. All I can tell you is Japan was not the secret for martial arts. The whole thing was a scam. And we believed it, right? Steven Seagal went over to Japan and he trained, and therefore he knows more than all of us. We all thought it was true. And now here we are realizing, man, you guys have not only never won a championship, you've only fought for it one time. Yushin Okami is the only Japanese guy to even make it to the finals match. And I would like an explanation on that. I would like to know why we were told for all these years how great they were, and when it actually got tested, it turns out they suck.
Okay, so Pride, right? Look at Pride. Okay, so you got Sakuraba.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not. Okay, so Sakuraba's Japanese. I don't know, I think maybe he was a champ. And Takanori Gomi.
Yep.
Also. And I kind of know this. I've been refreshed of this watching the countdown to this fight and showing. It's funny, Chael, because what they did in the countdown show was they propped up the Japanese MMA scene to try to let, for the average viewer and the average fan to go, this kid's legit. He comes from a legit lineage and heritage of fighting. And like, they really propped it up. Have I been fooled? Oh man. Okay. So looking at Pride though, Pride must have had Japanese champs. They must have and that was a pretty big organization.
Right.
We can agree, right?
You would think that, but they didn't. That's the thing. They didn't. You would think that they did. All of their champions came in, whether it was Krokop from Croatia, whether it was Fedor representing Russia, whether it was Nogueira representing Brazil, whether it was Vanderlei from Brazil, whether it was Dan Henderson representing California. They didn't have any Japanese champions. And Sakuraba did have his run. That guy had a very special style, man. He had poise and he had everything. I followed the sport from day one, and I have heard time and time again how great Gomi was. I'm not looking to be a dick about it. I've never seen it. I don't know what the big deal is. The one time I actually got to see Gomi fight, Nick Diaz choked him out with a move that I've never seen before. I'm told, though, of how great Gomi was, and I will accept it. I'm just sharing for you. When you talk about they must have had champions, they did not.
Yeah.
They did not have champions. And if there was some guy that early on they could get a belt around, and believe me, they were willing to pay for it.
Right.
They were willing to pay for it, and even rigging the deck, I don't think they ever had a champion. I don't know that Sakuraba had it. I know Sakuraba was the guy, but I'm not positive he ever had the title. Maybe he did, and I know when Vanderlei fought him, maybe Vanderlei took the belt from him. I remember that wrong, but I'm not positive even he had it.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I'm not looking to like insult an entire culture. I'm trying to figure out where this came from. Why did I believe that my whole life? Why was that a really big deal? It came from the movies. It came from Hollywood and nowhere else.
Yes. This idea that martial arts is, very much an Asian culture thing, which probably is. I think it originated there, right? I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know what happened. But we all believe when you think, okay, Japan, it's like karate, kung fu, China, karate, the other way. China's kung fu, Japanese is karate. And those were the dominant sports, right, back in the day, which nowadays, if beyond maybe Wonder Boy, who's doing karate, even the karate classes the kids are taking are now turning over to MMA. And you brought up a really interesting point, too, that you guys didn't know that wrestling was going to be so dominant. And it has been proven, yes? Like wrestling, if you had one skill to have and to be dominant in the UFC, wrestling would be your discipline of choice.
Yep.
And it works. Question, because you have a heart out, and I'm going to remind you of it now, but I'm going to ask you a question. You said earlier, Japan, not the best at
Terrible. I said it turned out they suck. And then I gave an exception to my guy, Yushin Okami.
Yes.
But the rest of them turned out they suck.
Okay, got it. Yes, sir. Right. Okay. So my question to you, Chael, is if you had to back any country, you had to be like, there were teams and there were factions, and it was like, but you can't pick America. Okay. Give me your top 3 countries that you back as UFC. If you were like, Chael, every time these people win, you win. Who do you go with first? Is it Brazil? Is it Russia? Like, where do you go?
Okay, and I will do just that. I will exclude the United States because that would be my very clear choice. But I'll tell you an overlooked one is Cuba.
Ooh.
Cuba can produce some fantastic athletes, and I'm talking about in baseball, in boxing, in fighting, in judo. They don't all get recognized, and a lot of them can't ever get out of the country for political reasons to really show that skill. But I'm going to put Cuba in there. It will be no surprise to you that I will put Russia in there. And one that people do overlook, but if you go and you look at the medal count at the Olympic Games, China. China does not play. And I'll give you a quick story, Soch, and I wish I had more to this, but I don't. When Beijing hosted the Olympics in 2008, they had all sorts of medals across the board. And, you know, you get a little of home cooking with the officials. That's the way every sport goes. But China had a story. They got assigned the Olympic Games 12 years prior. And they were not overly known for athletics, but they wanted to do this. And when they did it, they wanted to showcase themselves. So the government got people that drove to the different villages. They would call the kids over and they would put these kids through different tests. The only one that I can remember was they'd have a kid put his hand out like this and they'd put a quarter in his hand and they'd stack another quarter and another quarter and another quarter. And there was a number, and I want to say it was 12. It wasn't all that high, but if you could get to 12 quarters without that falling over, they would take and they would put you into the shooting.
Hand-eye.
You'd go to the shooting club, but they had all sorts of these tests. And okay, this guy, we're going to put him into powerlifting. This person, they're going to join the volleyball team. I wish I knew more about what the government did and what they looked for to know what classifications to put these kids in. But if you accepted and you were the parent, they took that child to a training center.
Wow.
That is where they ate, slept, and got their schooling. In exchange, your family was promised 3 bags of rice a week, and parents would let their children go. And 12 years later, they were dominating the Olympic Games. And it's a really interesting thing. China will not let somebody leave the country unless the government has assessed them and they believe that person could bring back a gold medal. You know, you see Wei Li and it's like, well, China's first great fighter. It's like, no, China's got a lot of them. The country does not let them go to be an also-ran. It's all about goal. It's very, very tough, and they've got very good athletes, and they have a very good system. They have very good coaches. I'm going to put China. I'm going Cuba, Russia, China.
Wow. Okay. So first of all, China, let's say the word would be the reason they would probably be number one is discipline. Yes? Just disciplined lifestyle. And I think like that speaks to everything, right? They say you don't need motivation, you need discipline, right? People need discipline to win at anything. So China has the most physicality-wise, Cuba.
Absolutely.
Yes. Difficult lifestyle leading to the ability to fight for your life and being able to, like if you're raised in Dagestan, it's not a cush lifestyle, right? I think we can agree that Russia has that mentality. I'm a little surprised you didn't put Brazil in there just for pure numbers and the ability to win the most. I mean, jiu-jitsu being so dominant there, but where does that rank? Would that be 4 for you?
Brazil would be in there. I definitely wouldn't overlook them, and they've earned a seat at the table, but it's not quite the same thing with Brazil, only in that the schools get behind it. In PE class in Brazil, you could have jiu-jitsu class, or they will offer judo. And so there is just a level of exposure, but Brazil very much, and it's the thing that cost them, is about technique. Technique and being smarter and looking at this like chess wins the day and oversees everything. And that's a nice thing to tell a group of people, but it isn't true. The strong guy that is willing to stay in there and grind it out, which is where the Russians come in. Technique is second and third. And then you've got the Americans. You know, I know we left America out, but America in front of everything is conditioning. We're going to throw more at you and more on you. And if you can't get to the ball when the referee blows the whistle, we'll just beat you that way. So it's a very different approach. If Brazil did have a little bit more of that, quite frankly, it comes down to marijuana. Marijuana and jiu-jitsu are so culturally tied together in Brazil. And I know you get a lot of stoners out there that say it doesn't make you lazy. Yes, it does. If you took the pot out of Brazil and you left the jiu-jitsu, they would go to number one. But hand in hand, it's just not going to work.